Property advice for real.
With houza.com, the UAE's new home for buying, renting or selling a property.
We're talking real estate now. Sarah Hewerdine is the head of marketing at Houza with us in the studio. Morning, Sarah.
Morning. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much indeed. Sarah's brought me in cupcakes, which I greatly appreciate. Now, let's talk about the real estate market. A story on the BBC, of all places, out of the United Kingdom, but focusing on Dubai, says the following: an influx of Russian nationals is driving up rental prices, not necessarily sale prices, but rental prices here in Dubai. What did you make of this?
I think we do have to be careful with a lot of the headlines we see because they can be a little bit misleading. And I think there is a little bit of a misconception that, you know, the influx of Russians into the UAE has had an impact on the rental market. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a driver. That is definitely one of the drivers of the increase in rents we're seeing. But I would not be saying that rental prices have increased just because of the influx of Russians.
So, okay, let's take a step back. Let's quantify to what extent have rental prices increased in Dubai over the past 12 to 18 months or so. Then we can talk about what the drivers are, but what do the numbers tell us? Because at houza.com, obviously, you have an awful lot of data that you generate from your platform.
Yeah, so when we look at the general increase in rental prices, you're looking at around 27 to 28% when you look at it across the entire market. Now, that is apartments and villas, but when you look at it into sub-segments, we know luxury is up by well over 50%. We look at villas are up by much higher as well. But on the whole, you're looking at around 27%. But like I say, you need to look at those sub-segments. So where you look at the villa market, you're much higher in those increases.
So if we compare, I don't know, International City or Discovery Gardens, relatively affordable destinations for apartments here in Dubai, compared with, I don't know, Al Barari or the Palm Jumeirah, what kind of differential are we looking at?
Yeah, so if you were to look at somewhere like Discovery Gardens, you're looking at an increase of around 15% on average if you look at the studios and the one beds. If you're looking at more of the villa communities, you're looking at 50, 60% at times. And that's even when you look at places like the Springs. But I think we've got to remember that we're comparing it to quite a low baseline post-COVID. So there's a lot of people that got into their rental contracts during that period, got used to those low rents, and now we're returning to, yes, don't get me wrong, it's higher than we were in 2019, but we're definitely, not miles ahead from where we were.
So in terms of going back to the Russia story and the type of properties that Russians living here are renting at the moment, what are you seeing? What's the sweet spot?
So typically in the rental market, it's usually over around about 250,000 dirham is the prices that they're going into in the villa market. Now, when we look at why Russians are coming in, they want residency, they want the ability to stay in Dubai. 9 times out of 10, they're buying properties, they're not renting. But if they are renting, they're renting the higher ticket items, big villas, and definitely that end of the market, which, look, that will always have an impact on the rest of the market. So if the prices are going to be driven up in an increase over 250,000, anyone who's living in those types of units will go to smaller units, and people just naturally downsize as affordability gets hit.
So the story for the past couple of years, maybe a year or so, has been a number of Russians arriving in Dubai. Probably over-exaggerated, but that's been the story. You say keep an eye on China and Chinese visitors. We haven't really seen Chinese visitors for 3 years or so, but you say that's changing.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. The last 4 to 5 months especially, we haven't seen as many Russian investors, buyers, tenants coming into this market. We've definitely noticed that decrease, yet prices have remained because we've got a lot of Europeans coming in. But when you look towards the sales market, and I think we've all been, it was one of my predictions for this year to have Chinese investors come back in, and we're starting to see it now in the off-plan market. Now, they're not coming back in the levels that we saw before in the busloads down to the off-plan complexes, but
were those just stories, or was that actually happening?
It happened. Definitely happened. But you're definitely starting to see more Chinese investors come back in. They like the off-plan units, and I think that will definitely be something to watch for us all throughout this year.
You've been looking at occupancy rates in terms of the rental market. Typically, when we talk about occupancy rates, we're thinking about hotels, and there's always a number. It's 93% or 72%, whatever it may be. But you look at occupancy rates in Dubai and you say they are higher. What are they and how do you calculate them?
Yeah, so occupancy rates are now around 89%. Now, over the last couple of years, they've hovered around 86 to 87%. We are about 5% higher than we were pre-COVID. So we have quite strong occupancy rates here now. But when we look at occupancy rates, we've noticed more of an increase in these cheaper neighbourhoods, should I say. So, for example, if you look at places like Damac Hills, Akoya, much further out, these have, the ability to get a 3-bedroom villa for about 110,000 dirham. That is where you're noticing occupancy rates actually very strong. So they're around 93% in those neighbourhoods.
Let's talk about what's going to happen in 2024, 2025, because there is a concern in the Business Breakfast studio. Of course, the real estate market's booming at the moment, but there's a lot of off-plan development happening that in 18 months' time, it's all going to arrive on the market. Economies are cyclical. We're going to get a flood of supply just as demand eases up. It's just a concern. We have no evidence for that, but we've been here long enough. We've got long memories. What's your thought on that?
I mean, it doesn't a week that goes by that I don't have somebody ask me what's going to happen. So I think you're not out of line in that prediction in a sense, but I think you have to look at it in different areas of the market. So we do have a huge amount of supply coming at the end of 2024 into 2025, and that is going to service what's currently we're struggling with, which is villas. Now, when they enter the market, I think that we may see a bit of an oversupply in lower grade stock. So I think where we will see, maintaining a lot of the prices and where communities will do well are the master communities with well-known developers that are building well. But towards the end of 2024, as those handovers come in, then yeah, I do think we may see a bit of an oversupply.
Sarah Hewerdine is the head of marketing at Houza. Appreciate your time this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks for having me.